like to welcome you to my series on Bruce Lee's martial art, Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do Complete. The purpose of these instructional videos is to go more in depth than anyone previously has into the study of Bruce Lee's fighting method. In these tapes, not only will you see the how, but you'll see the why and the when. Most of you have probably seen books and other instructional videos on Jeet Kune Do. Certain elements of these books, certain elements of these videotapes probably sort of left you in the dark. You could not tell by the photo sequences how the technique would actually be applied, or you could not tell by the video all the various ways that a technique could be used. In this series, we will go extremely in-depth onto all areas of training. My background in Bruce Lee's fighting method goes back to the mid-70s. I trained with 8 of Bruce Lee's original students. I'm very familiar with the material from the Seattle period, the Oakland period, and the Chinatown period. I've written articles for Black Belt, Inside Kung Fu, Inside Karate, with many more to come. In 1991, I was inducted into the World Martial Arts Hall of Fame as the Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do Instructor of the Year. I think you'll see when you watch these tapes that myself and my students definitely know what we're doing. I think you'll learn a lot from the tapes if you study them carefully and train hard. I'm the Executive Director of the United States Jeet Kune Do Alliance. If you're not already a member and you are seriously interested in Bruce Lee's fighting method, membership is something that you may want to consider. Student membership is only $25 per year, renewable each year in the month that you originally joined. You get a newsletter, you get special offers, discounts on instructional videotapes like this one, and many other things that are not open to outsiders. We also have training camps each year, usually 2 or 3 times a year, for anyone who's interested in becoming an instructor of Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. We promote the original method as taught by Bruce Lee. Where Bruce Lee died, that's where we end. We do, however, encourage, once you have completed our program, if you would like to go out on your own and maybe even go into the concepts route, that's fine. But many people were never given the chance to learn what Bruce Lee originally had to offer. That's the purpose of the United States Jeet Kune Do Alliance. We want to give you that chance. If you're interested in membership, you can write to me, Sifu Lamar M. Davis II, at 267 West Valley Avenue, suite number 223, Birmingham, Alabama, zip code 35209. We will send you an application and we will send you some information. If you would like to call about seminars or membership, area code 205-664-5425. You'll reach the office of my training academy, the Fighting Dragons Chinese Martial Arts Academy, which is the most complete Chinese martial arts training facility in the state of Alabama. If you're interested in USJKDA membership, please contact me and become a part of everything that we're doing. I would like to talk to you a little bit about the history of Jun Fan Kung Fu and Jeet Kune Do. As most of you probably already know, Bruce Lee started out training in the system of Wing Chun. He trained in Hong Kong under the tutelage of Yip Man and 2 of his primary students, Wang Shun Lung and Chung Chuk Hing. Most of you know Chung Chuk Hing as William Chung. When Bruce first came to the United States, what he taught was primarily Wing Chun with a little bit of kicking and other techniques from some of the other systems of Chinese Kung Fu, primarily Northern style Chinese Kung Fu kicking, due to the fact that most of the kicking in the Wing Chun system consisted of from the waist down. Bruce wanted to broaden his kicking and make his use of the legs much more functional for combative purposes. During the Seattle period, Bruce taught such prominent people as Taki Kimura, Jesse Glover, James DeMille, Joseph Cowles, who was one of my instructors. Today, you can closely see what Bruce was teaching during the Seattle period by watching such people as Jesse Glover. Jesse has a series of tapes out that are excellent that cover certain aspects of non-classical Chinese Kung Fu. Jesse was also one of my instructors. When Bruce left the Seattle period, the Oakland period began. He resided in Oakland, California with James Yim Lee, who became one of his most ardent students. James Lee was responsible for building a lot of the training equipment that later was made famous by Bruce. During the Oakland period, you saw the addition of several techniques from boxing. You saw the addition of some fencing footwork and fencing defensive theory. You also saw some elements from certain other aspects of martial arts integrated into Jeet Kune Do. Basically, it was the Oakland period which the term Jeet Kune Do came into use. From the Oakland period, Bruce went to LA Chinatown and opened a school there. From the Chinatown period, certain prominent students that you will recognize would be Dan Inosanto, Ted Wong, Jerry Poteet, Daniel Lee, people of this nature. During this period, Jeet Kune Do reached its highest level of development and became a very, very, very combative system, as it always had been, but some of you have probably heard of a conflict that Bruce had during the Oakland period that forced him to make some changes in the original Junfan Kung Fu. Thus, Jeet Kune Do was born. Many people have referred to Jeet Kune Do as Chinese Kung Fu. Many people have referred to it as Chinese kickboxing. That's not really the important thing here. The important thing is that you realize that it was the method founded by Bruce Lee. Now, in this series of tapes, I intend to cover the techniques from the Seattle period, the Oakland period, and the LA Chinatown period in depth. Tapes in this series will be basics, like basic foundation movements, which will cover stance, defensive theory, basic concepts, things of that nature. You will see a technique on tape on hand techniques, a tape on kicking techniques. You will see tapes on the 5 ways of attack, basic trapping, advanced trapping, energy and sensitivity training, Seong Chi Sao, which is the double arm sticking. You'll see a tape on Seong Chi Sao with trapping and grappling. You'll see a tape on basic Jeet Kune Do self-defense techniques. You'll see a technique on grappling, a tape on grappling and counter-grappling. So these are some of the tapes that you'll see in this series. If you study them closely, you can learn quite a bit. And hopefully, if you acquire the entire series, you will be able to obtain a much more complete knowledge of Bruce Lee's art than you have at the present time. I think you'll enjoy the series, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I hope that I can meet all of you in person one day and train you one-to-one. At this point, we'll get started. Hello, welcome to Junfan Jeet Kune Do Complete, Volume 6, Hand and Leg Defense. In this tape, we will cover all the basic hand defense positions, all the basic leg defense positions, all the basic zones and perimeters, defensive theory, defensive techniques from Junfan Kung Fu and Jeet Kune Do. I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about basic defensive theory in Junfan Jeet Kune Do. A lot of other martial arts will defend first, then attack, or block, 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 then counter strike. In Jeet Kune Do, the primary objective is to hit. So, the defensive move is considered secondary in Jeet Kune Do. Whenever possible, we will try to strike and defend at the same time. Like I said, whenever possible. Sometimes that's not possible, but when it is possible, that's what we prefer to do. We look at things from a standpoint that there should be no wasted energy, no wasted movement. Economy of motion, that's the important thing here in both defense and offense. We look at everything from a standpoint of whether it wastes motion, whether it wastes energy. If it does, we don't need it, we throw it out. Okay, the first issue that I would like to talk about here is parrying versus blocking. Okay? In Jeet Kune Do, we prefer the parry over the block. Does everybody know the difference between a parry and a block? Okay, a parry is a redirection of incoming force. A block is a total stoppage of incoming force. An art like, I'll say karate for instance, would emphasize a block, whereas an art like Wing Chun would emphasize a parry. The term parry simply means to redirect the force. So in other words, instead of using your own physical strength against their physical strength for a block to totally stop their force, whenever possible, you simply redirect their force and allow it to continue on the same line that it started from. At this time, Harry Daniel will join me, and I'm going to explain to you the difference between a parry and a block. Okay, if Harry were to fire a straight punch at my head, and I were to move like so, this is considered a parry, right in my face. Again. Okay, notice that the force is not stopped, it's redirected. Let's show them another angle on that. Straight in my face. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if Harry were to throw, let's say, a rear hand hook at my head, and I were to do this, this would be a block or a total stoppage of incoming force using my physical strength against Harry's physical strength. Okay? Now, in Jeet Kune Do, against that same hook, we would prefer to allow the energy to continue, trap it, and counter. Like so. Occasionally, in Jeet Kune Do, you would use a blocking move, but the attack itself, which in this case is a finger jab to the eye, is going to take a lot of sting out of his hook punch. As soon as these fingers hit his eyes, he's not going to be concerned with that hook anymore. He's going to be concerned with the pain that he's feeling and the watering of the eyes and the temporary blindness that he's going to experience from that finger jab. Another example would be a punch. Just a simple punch fired into his face as he fires the hook. Whereas another art may emphasize block, then counter, like so. Block, then counter. Jeet Kune Do would either evade, parry, or simultaneous block and strike. Okay, so that's an example of parrying as opposed to blocking. Okay, Harry's going to stand right up against the wall now, and I'm going to explain some of the defensive zones and perimeters that we use to explain attacks and defenses in Junfan Jeet Kune Do. I'll be using this pointer. First thing we're going to talk about here is the center line. Harry, look straight at the camera, please. Okay, the center line splits Harry's body right down the middle. Okay? All right, then we're going to come across with another line right at the solar plexus, right here. Okay, then we're going to come across with another line right below Harry's groin. All right, now, this divides the body into 6 distinctive areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Anything above the groin is considered in the hand defense zone. Anything below the groin is considered the leg defense zone. Okay, so in other words, what we're saying here is anything above the groin, Harry would defend with his hands. Anything below the groin, he would defend with his legs. Of course, evasion, which will be covered in this tape, is another option that's also open to you here. Okay, so we have what we refer to as the 4 corners of hand defense. These 4 corners are 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Can you imagine this? A line here and a line here. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. It doesn't matter how you number that, as long as you know that there's 4. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't matter. That's not what is important here. What is important is that you realize that there are 4 corners. Okay. Now, we go about 1 inch outside of either shoulder here. And we have another line. Okay. Then we have the line down here, just below the groin. Then we come right to the top of the head, and we put another line. Now we put Harry's upper body inside a large rectangle. Can you see that? These are the 2 sides of the rectangle. This is the bottom line. This is the top line. So we put Harry inside a rectangle. Now, these lines happen to be the lines that determine whether defensive movement is wasted motion or whether it was economical. Okay? If Harry were to defend and he were to move his hand further than 1 inch outside this shoulder or 1 inch outside that shoulder, he would have been wasting motion because he would have moved into an area where there was nothing to hit. If he were to defend and raise his hand above the top of his head, he would be wasting motion, he would be wasting energy, because there's nothing above the top of his head that can be hit. Alright, if he brought his hand down below his groin level to defend against an attack, say an attack coming to his knee, and he tried to defend with his hand, that would be wasted motion. Because as he made that movement, his head would come forward, and he would bring his head right into the line of attack. Okay? So, we definitely want to avoid that. Alright, so the hands are going to defend anything inside the lines of this rectangle. Okay? Anything outside those lines, if he tried to defend, he would be wasting motion because there's nothing outside those lines that can be hit. Okay, now, the legs can jam or stop kick. Okay? You can either jam or stop kick with the legs. So, any attack coming in below the groin, you either defend with the legs or you use footwork to evade, angle, reposition so that the technique cannot land, so that it can do no harm to your legs. Okay, now, when we take this into consideration, we have to have some way of distinguishing between these 4 corners. Harry, assume a right lead fighting stance directly at the camera, please. Okay, we have what we call the outside corners and the inside corners. Okay, for the sake of demonstration, drop your hands straight to your sides. Okay, this side is leading. The right side leads. It's closest to the opponent. This side is the farthest away. Okay, an analogy that I like to use to explain this is like so. If you walk up to a house, what do you come to first? The inside of the house or the outside of the house? Of course, the outside. Okay, so this side being closest to the opponent, this is considered the outside of the stance. Okay? The center line is like a door that goes through to the inside, which is the rear portion of the stance. Okay? So we have the outside of the stance, which would be the lead side, and the inside of the stance, which would be the rear side. Okay, now, taking into consideration, once again, our four corners here, formed by the center line and the line going across at the solar plexus, you have the outside high corner, the outside low corner, the inside high corner, and the inside low corner. Later on, when we talk about Lin Sil Die Dar, which is simultaneous defense and attack, you'll hear this explained again, and you'll see why it's necessary to understand these corners. If you know which corner an attack is coming to, then you know what the appropriate defensive move or the appropriate simultaneous defense and attack move would be. And it makes it much simpler to defend that particular corner. Okay, now, by the same token, if Harry were to assume a left leg fighting stance, okay, drop the hands again. All right, this would be the inside high corner. This would be the inside low corner. This would be the outside high corner. This would be the outside low corner. Okay? All right, now, Harry, if you would, turn all the way around facing my hand. Okay, now assume a right lead fighting stance facing my hand. Okay, now I'm going to explain what we refer to as defensive perimeters. On guard? Okay, now, if Harry were to extend his arm almost all the way out, okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to use this extension of the arm, we're going to use the elbow as a place to put a line here. Okay, can everybody imagine that line there, right where the pointer is? Okay. Now, this is what we call the inner perimeter, the distance from the elbow back. Okay, from the elbow out, this is what we call the outer perimeter. Okay, now these are defensive perimeters. If an attack comes in and it goes closer than the elbow of the extended arm, which of course you're not going to just extend your arm out there and look at your elbow and say, well, that attack is coming in closer than my elbow. That's not how we do that. Okay, it's just a way to understand what we're talking about here. So, this is the inner perimeter, this is the outer perimeter. If a technique comes past the elbow coming in, you pretty much have to do something. You have to either evade or defend. Okay, that's necessary at that point, because once it's this close, it doesn't take much till it's there. However, if your opponent, back up just a little bit, Harry. Okay, if your opponent is out of range and he fires a shot in, see, this is what we consider an outer perimeter attack. It did not go past that elbow, so there was no need to do anything with it. So if Harry was in his normal fighting stance, and I were to fire a punch at his head, and it were out here, he doesn't have to do anything. However, if it comes closer than that distance of the extended arm, elbow, if it comes closer than that, he has to do something with it. He has to either defend or he has to evade to avoid being hit. Okay? So, these perimeters show the necessity of either defending or just letting it go. Okay? If it's inner perimeter, you've got to do something with it. You've either got to defend, you've got to attack, or you've got to evade. If it's outer perimeter, you don't have to do a thing. You can just watch it go by and then counter immediately while the opening is still there. Okay, thank you, Harry. All right, that's a basic explanation of the defensive zones and perimeters in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Okay, now, the next thing that I want to talk about is what we refer to as Mon Sao and Wu Sao. Okay, the Mon Sao is the lead hand in the fighting stance. This is the basic Jeet Kune Do fighting stance. The Mon Sao is the lead hand. Mon Sao means inquisitive hand or asking hand. Okay? This is the hand that usually probes, makes the initial contact. Therefore, it is inquisitive. It is asking. One way that we look at this in Jeet Kune Do is that when I fire an attack, it's like I'm asking a question. When my opponent defends, it's like an answer to my question. And when I receive that answer, I have to feel the energy. And when I feel that energy, I have to respond immediately. This is what we call contact reflex, the ability to respond immediately to what you feel on initial contact with the opponent's defending or attacking limb. Okay, so Mon Sao is the lead hand. That's the asking hand or the inquisitive hand. Okay, Wu Sao is the protective hand or the rear hand. Okay, the rear hand, Wu Sao, protective hand. Okay, looking at that from the side, Mon Sao, the lead hand, Wu Sao, the rear hand. The Wu Sao, the rear hand in the fighting stance, primary job of the Wu Sao is to defend. Okay, so this tells you very simply that in Jeet Kune Do, the lead hand is the primary attack hand, the rear hand is the primary defense hand. Okay, relatively simple. Okay, if you watch the tape on foundation structure, you should know that in Jeet Kune Do we put the power side to the front. Okay, so the power side hand will be to the front. I hit harder with my right hand. I use my right hand more. I use my right leg better than I do my left leg, so I put this side to the front. So it's a strong side forward. So this is the Mon Sao, or asking hand or inquisitive hand. This is the Wu Sao, or the protective hand. So in my fighting stance, my rear hand is responsible primarily for defense. My lead hand is responsible primarily for attack. Okay, that's a basic explanation of some of the basic defensive theory in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Now, in the next sequence, we're going to take you further into the mechanics of defense. And we'll start off with the Pak Sao, or slapping hand, and some of the applications for the Pak Sao in the four corners. In this segment, we're going to cover the Pak Sao, or the slapping hand. Okay, the Pak Sao is used in several different ways in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. One way would be the Woang Pak, or cross slap, like so. Okay, like so. All right, another way would be to Pak Sao, low on the outside corner, low outside, Pak Sao. Okay, another way would be to Pak Sao on the inside, low corner, like so. Okay, so we have a slap block that goes to the inside low corner, a slap block that goes to the outside low corner, and a slap block or slap parry that crosses the center line on the high line, the Woang Pak. Okay, the lead hand can also be used for Pak Sao, both low and high, but it would be extremely rare in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do for the lead hand to be used for the Pak Sao. The Pak Sao is one of our main Lin Sil Die Dar, or simultaneous defense and attack movements. Here, here, and here. These are three of the primary Lin Sil Die Dar movements, which I'll cover later in the tape. At this time, Harry will join me, and we'll explain some of the use of the Pak Sao, some of the basic uses to the various corners. Okay. If Harry were to throw a lead hand straight punch at my face, like so, okay, from the on guard position, using the Wu Sao, or protective hand, I could cross slap, like so. This is the Woang Pak, or cross slap. Notice how I don't waste any motion. I don't push him way over here. This is what we refer to as cutting off the lead. If I push too far over, I cut off the use of my lead hand. I want the lead hand to be free for simultaneous attack during this movement. So, if I parry too far over, I cut off the use of that hand. So I want to make sure that nothing is wasted. It's just a simple slap parry, parrying him right across the center, like so. Okay, now, if he were to attack low, just a straight shot, such as a ping choi or horizontal fist. If you were to come in with that, I could just slap straight down on it. Just a downward center line Pak Sao, just straight down. Or, since this is coming somewhat to the inside low corner, I could use the Pak, the inside low corner, to defend. So I could either drop straight on it, or I could pocket outward with an inside low Pak. Okay? If a technique were coming to this area over here, such as a rear hand hook or rear hand shovel hook blow coming in, I could deliver the Pak straight down on it. Like so. This is perhaps the most difficult of all of the Pak Sao or slap hand defensive moves. The timing required here is a bit more precise than in the other Pak Sao movements. Okay, now, as I mentioned earlier, the lead hand can be used to Pak Sao, but it would be rare, as we prefer to leave the lead hand free for attack. But just some examples of a lead hand Pak would be if Harry were to throw a rear hand straight punch at my head, like so, okay, I could use the lead Pak to parry, in which case I could counter with a rear hand straight punch. Okay, if he were to throw a lead hand hook at my head, I could Pak Sao with the lead hand to stop the hook. If he were to throw a lead hand body hook, I could use the lead hand to Pak Sao or stop that. However, as I said earlier, more preferable would be here, which would enable me to throw a simultaneous attack. This is a basic explanation of the Pak Sao or slapping hand parry. It's used quite extensively in Jung Jeet Do. Later on in the tape on trapping hands, you'll see how the Pak Sao is used in conjunction with what we refer to as a Goang Sao as a trapping hand movement. In the next sequence, we'll demonstrate the Tan Sao. In this sequence, we'll be demonstrating the Tan Sao, or palm up hand. The Tan Sao has several uses in Jeet Kune Do. One is as a parry, another is as a block, which, as I said earlier, we prefer to parry whenever possible, but sometimes it's just not possible depending on the opponent's attack. So the Tan can be used as a block. Then later on, you'll see the trapping application for the Tan Sao as what we refer to as a Tan Sao wedge. So there are several ways to use this Tan Sao or palm up hand. Okay, the basic application of the Tan Sao is with the lead hand. All I'm doing is rotating my wrist and exerting slight forward pressure on the center line, allowing the attack to slide either on the inside of my arm or on the outside of my arm. So it could go either way, either sliding inside or sliding outside my wrist. Okay, so the Tan Sao, basically torque the wrist, palm up, exert slight forward energy, like so. Occasionally, the Tan Sao can be used with the rear hand, like so. However, it is primarily a lead hand deflecting tactic or technique. Okay, Harry will join me now. We're going to show you some of the applications for the Tan Sao. Okay, as I said earlier, you just torque the wrist, exert slight forward energy, which causes your opponent's attack to be deflected off the center. Okay, only one force can occupy the center and land at a time. In other words, two forces couldn't occupy the center and both land as far as an attack goes. So, if I occupy the center, I force him off the center. That gives me control of the center line. Okay, in this case, if he were to fire the lead straight, and I use my Tan Sao properly, I deflect him right off the center. Okay, now this is good to open me up for a trap. Which is using the Pak Sao that we discussed earlier. Okay? Alright. Now, if he fired a rear hand straight punch toward my head, okay, I could deflect it like so with the time. Once again, exerting energy on the center line. Now this could lead to going from tan to Fook. This is a Fook Sao, to a straight punch here. So I deflect, I trap, and I hit. That would just be an example of one of the possible follow-ups. Another example would be here, here. Using the same hand to counter, or here, here. Just torquing my wrist right into a finger jab attack. Or here, here, going right into a punch. These are just some examples of some things that I could work off of this Tan Sao. As I said earlier, the Tan Sao can also be used as a block. Even though we prefer not to block, sometimes it's necessary. If he threw a hard rear hand hook at my head, at the time, Tan Sao might be the only thing that would effectively stop that. And I notice that I can follow up immediately with a palm smash to the head, like so. Okay? Now, if necessary, I could back it up with a rear hand Pak Sao, and then go in with a hit. Okay, so that would be an example of the Tan Sao as a block. Now, use of the rear hand Tan, he fired a rear hand straight punch at my head, right here. Notice I fired my own punch at the same time. So we have Lin Sil Die Dar, simultaneous defense and attack. Okay? Just the defensive move though, right here. Notice how close his fist comes to my head when he delivers this attack. That is one of the requirements of a good economical defensive move. Their attack should come relatively close to striking its target. In case you don't know why, the reason for that is that the less distance you deflect them from the target, the less distance you have to travel to return a strike. In other words, if Harry fires a punch and I were to deliver a Tan Sao way out here, that's more distance that I have to return. Okay? However, if I'm very economical, see, I just slide right in. Okay? So don't waste energy, don't waste movement when you defend. If he were to fire a hard lead hook at my head, the Tan Sao, once again, might be the only answer to immediate defense against that hook. Like so. And chances are, I would fire a lead hand punch at the same time I delivered the Tan. Okay. Later on in Bruce Lee's teaching career, he somewhat abandoned this position in favor of this position. So in other words, if it were a rear hand straight punch coming at my head, it would be here. Because to Bruce, this was easier, just coming right off of the rear hand protective position, which is here. It's much easier to come right off of that than it would be to turn the wrist over. However, we do still teach this use of the tongue, as it is very important. Okay, so against a hook, Bruce later on chose this in favor of this because of the simplicity and the directness of the movement. Okay, those are some examples for the use of the Tan Sao in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. In the next sequence, you're going to see the Bong Sao, or wing arm, and how it's used in Jeet Kune Do. In this segment, we're going to cover the Bong Sao, or wing arm, or elbow in air deflection, as some instructors refer to it. The Bong Sao is a deflecting move, a parry.
Okay? This is the basic position for the Bong Sao. The Wu Sao acts as a backup for the Bong Sao in case the attempted Bong Sao fails. Notice the angle of the arm. Notice that the center line comes right through the center of the forearm. Notice that the elbow is slightly higher than the shoulder and the wrist is lower than both the shoulder and the elbow. Okay? All right. Now, the way that I get into this from my fighting stance is just rotate the arm right into position, like so. Notice how the Wu Sao acts as a backup. The Bong Sao, as I said earlier, is a deflecting movement or a parry. It's nearly always done with the lead hand. Okay, Harry's going to join me now. We're going to show you some uses of the Bong Sao. Okay, in this application with Harry and I both in the same lead, in other words, I'm in the right lead and Harry's in the right lead, the Bong Sao would come into play if Harry were to fire a rear hand straight punch at my head. See how simple it was for me to pivot from the waist and hips, roll that arm, and deflect his punch off center. It's one of the easiest ways to defend against that particular punch. It's a very natural move, very natural movement. Okay, now, a good follow-up for this would be here, okay? I use Bong Sao, or wing arm, Lap Sao, or grabbing hand, followed by Kwun Sao or back fist, using a tight hinging action right off of my Bong Sao. I'll show you that again. You'll see all this later on in the tape on trapping. We're just giving you a basic idea of some of the uses for the Bong Sao. Okay, I can go Bong Sao, back fist, then I use the underside of the Bong Sao as a scooping movement. Okay, watch that again. Bong Sao, trap, back fist, underside of the Bong Sao movement as a scoop. Later on in the tape on Chi Sao, you'll see that the arms rotate. One arm maintains the Fook Sao position. The other arm rotates from Tan Sao, which we've already talked about, to Bong Sao. Okay? So that's another place where you'll see the Bong Sao brought into play. Okay. So the Bong Sao doesn't have all that many uses, but it is a very effective movement when you do need it. Okay, once again, against a rear hand straight punch, coming to the head, like so. Notice the Wu Sao acting as a backup for that Bong Sao. Okay, if you were punching a little bit lower, like to the chest, solar plexus region right here, the Bong Sao can also come into play there. Notice, however, in this application though, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Okay? Notice that the elbow is slightly lower than the shoulder, the wrist is slightly lower than the elbow. Once again. And also, once again from here, I can still do that same trap and hit movement. Okay? Very simple. And I can still also use it as a scoop on the return to counterpunch. Okay, that's the basic use of the Bong Sao in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. In the next sequence, we're going to cover what we refer to as the Goang Sao. In this sequence, we're going to demonstrate the Goang Sao, or downward circling outer wrist parry, or block. This can be delivered either with the lead hand or the rear hand. Lead hand delivery looks like so. The arm simply sweeps down and out to parry or block. Notice that there's no excessive motion, nothing is wasted. We prefer to do this with the rear hand whenever possible once again leaving the lead hand free to attack. Rear hand Goang Sao would look like so. Once again, not wasting any movement, not wasting any energy, just going right into the defensive move. When delivered with simultaneous attack, it would look like so. Okay, now Harry will join me and we'll demonstrate the defensive use of the Goang Sao against an incoming attack. Okay, of course, this would be low line attack. If he were to attack with his rear hand with a hooking type motion coming into my outside low corner, it'd be very simple for me to just use the Goang Sao to come down and block that move. Just cut right into it and stop it cold. Okay, now I could use Lin Sil Die Dar and attack with the rear hand at the same time I do the Goang Sao. Like so. Okay. Now, with the rear hand, if he were to attack to this area with a hooking motion to the inside low corner, I would just cut into it like so. Notice how to attack this corner, he has to bring himself to me, making it very simple for me to counter. Notice how I have maximum extension with this counter punch. Okay, making for extremely deep penetration on the punch, making it much more painful, giving it knockout capability. Okay, it's possible for him to fire a rear hand strike going to my center line, in which case I could use the Goang Sao to clear the line like so. Okay? Or he could do the same thing with the lead hand. He could fire a direct thrust coming in toward the center line, which I could use the Goang Sao to cut and parry like so. With potential follow-up going right from here to Pak Sao and back fist. Okay, like so. These are some of the uses of the Goang Sao in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. In the next sequence, we're going to demonstrate what is referred to as the Fook Sao. In this sequence, we're going to cover the Fook Sao, or bent wrist elbow in position. This is a parry, or deflection, done almost exclusively with the lead hand. Okay, from the fighting stance, I simply move my arm onto the center line and bend the wrist to act as a retaining move against the punch coming straight in. So I would parry, and then the wrist would detain the movement long enough for me to launch an effective counter. Okay, Harry will join me now. We'll demonstrate the use of the Fook Sao. For the sake of demonstration, Harry, assume a left leg, please. Okay. Now, if Harry were to throw a lead hand straight punch toward my head like so, I could use the Fook Sao like so, just moving on to the path of the punch and deflecting right in my face. Okay, like so. Now, it's extremely easy to work right off of that with a finger jab, a cutting palm, a back fist, a side palm, a vertical palm, a claw hand. See, all these moves flow very smoothly right off of that. Just a basic straight punch. Notice I just use my rear hand to retain as I fire the counter technique. Okay, so the Fook Sao comes onto the line and deflects. Okay? Notice that I don't waste motion and push way over here. Just enough to deflect. Just enough to make him miss. Then this is right here where it needs to be for me to trap it. Okay, another thing I can do off of this, I can use that Gaun Sao scoop, or Bong Sao scoop, that we showed earlier. So, here, here, see? I could go here, here, here. Okay, now if he tries to parry with his rear hand when I come here, I can flow right into something else. Okay, notice once again the flow. Alright, so once again, the Fook Sao is just an inner deflection right on the center line against something coming at the head, or he could punch right at my solar plexus region, and I could deflect there. Like so. I could take it from Fook Sao to the Goang Sao, open up the line. Okay? Whatever I want it to do from that point. Another place that you'll see Fook Sao, and we'll adjust the angle so you can see it work very well, is in Chi Sao. When we're sticking, notice my left arm is in the Fook Sao position. That completes half of the circle in the Siang Chi Sao, or double arm sticking. Notice that I maintain the elbow in and down. Notice how I maintain contact at the wrist, and my hand just kind of hooks over the arm. Thank you, Harry. So this is basic application of the Fook Sao, or bent wrist, elbow in parry. In the next sequence, we're going to show you Jum Sao. In this sequence, I'm going to demonstrate Jum Sao, or sinking elbow. It's a very simple deflecting move. From my fighting stance, all I do is drop my elbow. Just drop my elbow or move my elbow slightly in toward the center line, allowing the elbow portion of my arm to deflect the low line technique. Harry's going to join me now. Okay, Harry's going to assume a right lead. Okay, let's say that Harry fires a lead hand punch in toward my lower rib region. It's a very simple matter for me just to use my elbow to deflect that punch out of the way. Or if he decides to hook me to the ribs with this arm, I can just drop my elbow on it and stop his hooking motion. Notice that right from there, I'm set up to go with a full power lead hand straight punch. Okay. Now if he were to left lead and he fired a punch with his lead arm coming into my midsection, very simple matter. You just drop an elbow on it. Once again, I'm set up for immediate follow-up with a lead hand straight punch. Or if he were to throw a lead hook to my body from this position, very simple matter to just drop an elbow and stop it from getting in. This can also be quite painful to the person delivering the punch. That's the basic Jum Sao, or sinking elbow. Once again, from the fighting stance, just drop the elbow right onto the line of the attack, deflecting it either straight down to the inside or to the outside. In the next sequence, we're going to demonstrate what we call Kwun Sao. In this sequence, we're going to demonstrate what we call Kwun Sao, or rotating arm parry, or deflection. Okay, this is the first of two double arm defensive movements that I'm going to show you on this tape. From the fighting stance, the lead hand rotates into a Bong Sao. The rear hand you cover with the Wu Sao. This is to cover a wide area. This is for when you want to counter immediately with one hand, and you want it right in the position that it needs to be in for the most effective immediate counter. And when you have a large area to cover, as if you're not sure exactly where your opponent's attack may be coming. Now, this can also be used as a block to turn in and actually block or stop incoming force. It's more than likely going to be used as a parry to redirect the force to put you in a position for immediate counter. At this point, Harry's going to join me. He's going to assume a left lead position for demonstration purposes. Now, Harry's going to fire a punch in toward my head. Okay, notice the position. Both arms get in on the act when it comes to the defense. Okay, now, from here, I can trap and fire low. So notice that now the lower arm is getting to deliver the immediate counter. Or, from here, I can trap and hinge over the top and fire high. This is much like before when we showed you the Bong Sao, with the exception that before we were using just solely the Bong Sao as the defensive move. Now the Bong Sao and the Wu Sao position get in on this. Okay? Alright, I could go here, then here. See? We got 1, 2, 3, like so. That's another example. Or, as a block, if Harry were to hook into me with this hand, and I wasn't sure exactly on the height of that hook, if he fired a little lower, or a little higher. See, I can still cover. Right off of that, I trap, boom, smash the ribs. I could also go right from that in with the elbow. Then I could bar out the arm there, okay? Or, again, I could go here, hinge right over the top of the back fist, trapping here. Okay, so those are just some examples of the Kwun Sao, or rolling arm or rotating arm parry or block. In the next sequence, we're going to show you Gaun Sao, or splitting block, or splitting parry. In this sequence, I'm going to demonstrate Gaun Sao, or splitting block, or splitting parry, like so. Rear hand does the Goang Sao movement. The lead hand just cuts across with a chopping Tan Sao type movement. Okay, so this resembles an attempt to split something with your hands, therefore the term splitting block. Harry's going to join me now. He's going to assume a left lead. I'm going to demonstrate some of the uses for this splitting block. If he were to fire a lead hand punch at my head, see, I can use it here, and that way, if the attack had been a little lower, see, I still cover it, because I split the defense between the two hands. Okay? If he were to fire a hard rear hook, see, I can cut that off and cover that. Okay? Now, once again, I'm in immediate position to follow up with some quick counters. Okay, if he fired the lead hand, see, I'm in immediate position to just come in with some other things. Okay, now, another way that this is used, and the Kwun Sao that I showed you before is also used in this manner, is to defend against kicks. Take a hook kick, for instance, right lead. If Harry fires a hook kick toward my midsection, then you see the Kwun Sao, or rolling arm movement. Then the Gaun Sao, or splitting block. See how that's used to cover a wider area? If he fires this hook kick more to my head, see? Very effective against a kick for defensive purposes. Okay. In the next sequence, we're going to take you a little bit further into Jum Fan Jeet Kune Do defensive application. In this sequence, we're going to cover what's referred to in Jum Fan Jeet Kune Do as Lin Sil Die Dar. You've already heard me mention this term. What we're going to cover here is methods of defending and attacking at the same time, which is what Lin Sil Die Dar means, simultaneous defense and attack. Okay, first we're going to cover just what we call the basic four-corner Lin Sil Die Dar movements. Okay, I'm going to go over these, just showing them to you in the air. Then Harry's going to join me after this, and we'll show them to you as they're actually applied against an opponent. From the Jeet Kune Do fighting position, we have Tan Da, right here, which is Tan Sao, with a lead hand straight punch. Or it could be a finger jab, like so. Okay? We're going to use the straight punch throughout this sequence for demonstration purposes. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, later on in his career, Bruce Lee changed from this to this because of the simplicity. So, we train this both ways. One, for historical significance, and two, because of the change that Bruce made in the system at a certain point. Also, this gives you a comfort range here, where if you like this, if you like this, if you like this, whatever's best for you. Okay, so this is Tan Da. Okay, then we have Woang Pak Da, which is cross slap with cover. Cross slap cover with hit, like so. Okay, just cross hand cover, lead hand straight punch. All right, then we have Ouy Ha Pak, which is low outside slap block or slap parry with hit, which is going to be here. Ouy Ha Pak. Low outside or outside low slap cover with hit. Alright, then we have Loy Ha Pak, low inside slap cover with hit. Loy Ha Pak. Like so. Then we have Goang Da, which is Goang Sao with a hit. This is a slightly more forceful movement. Okay, now that's demonstrating with the lead hand hit. Seen from the side, you have Woang Pak, you have Tan Da, you have Ouy Ha Pak, and you have Loy Ha Pak. Okay, so you have Tan Da, Woang Pak, Ouy Ha Pak, and Loy Ha Pak, and then Goang Da. Goang Da. Like so. Okay, now, as I said, these are all striking with the lead hand. Now, this can also be done with the rear hand delivering the strikes. As I said earlier, it's preferable to defend with the rear hand and attack with the lead, but occasionally that's not possible, and you have to defend with the lead and attack with the rear. Either way, it's still Lin Sil Die Dar. Okay, so this time attacking with the rear hand straight punch, you have Woang Pak Da. Woang Pak Da. Cross slap cover with hit. Okay, you have Tan Da. Tan Da. Tan Sao with hit. Okay, then you have Ouy Ha Pak, outside low slap cover with hit. Then you have Loy Ha Pak, inside low slap cover with hit. Then you have Goang Da, downward circling outer wrist with hit. Seen from the side, Woang Pak Da, Tan Da, Loy Ha Pak, Ouy Ha Pak, and Goang Da. Those are the basic Lin Sil Die Dar movements defending the four corners. Now Harry will join me and I'll demonstrate these with a live training partner. Okay, first we'll cover Woang Pak Da. or a cross slap cover with hit. Okay? Harry's going to throw a lead hand straight punch toward my head, like so. Okay? Which I'm going to use the Woang Pak or cross slap with a simultaneous hit to form Woang Pak Da. Like so. Okay? From here, it's easy to follow up with several immediate strikes combined with trapping or grappling movements. Okay? This is using the lead hand to attack. Woang Pak Da. Right there, very slow, Harry. Notice that I don't chase it. I let it come to me. That allows me more reaction time. Okay? That was one of Bruce Lee's secrets to being very quick. Don't chase a technique, let it come to you. Gives you more time to see it, more time to react, therefore quickening your response. Okay. Still attacking with the lead hand. Let's say that Harry fires a rear hand straight punch at my head. Tanda or Tan Sao with simultaneous hit. Using both methods, the early method and the latter method. Notice that either way, no movement is wasted. No wasted motion, no wasted energy. Okay, now if Harry were to fire an attack to my inside low area, like so, okay, we have Loy Ha Pak Da, or low inside cover with hit. Low inside slap cover with hit. If he were to fire an attack to my outside low corner, like so, Ouy Ha Pak Da, outside low slap cover and hit. Notice how everything moves together. Okay, then going back to inside low, if he were to fire a hooking motion, Goang Da. Downward circling outer wrist parry or block with simultaneous hit. Okay, these are the basic movements of Lin Sil Die Dar, or simultaneous defense and attack. We just demonstrated the movements firing the strike with the lead hand. But as I showed you earlier, you can also fire the strike with the rear hand while the lead hand defends simultaneously. In the next sequence, we're going to cover what we refer to as sliding leverage. In this sequence, we're going to cover what's referred to in Jeet Kune Do as sliding leverage. Okay, now, in a sliding leverage strike, what I do, I take the energy of my opponent's strike and I force occupation of the center line, forcing him off of the center line, causing my attack to land, therefore his attack cannot land. Primarily, when we use the sliding leverage strike, we'll use it with Chung Chuie or vertical fist straight punch, or Bil Jeet or finger jab, or the Fook Da or Fook Sao with an immediate follow-up hit. Harry's going to join me now, and we're going to demonstrate some of these methods of sliding leverage that we use in Jeet Kune Do. Okay, now, it's preferable, as we've said earlier, to hit with the lead hand. So for some of these strikes, I will hit with my lead hand and cover with the rear. For other of these strikes, I'll show you how we use the rear hand to apply sliding leverage also. Okay, at this point, I want Harry to take a left lead. All right, now he's going to fire a lead hand straight punch toward my head. I'm going to show you how I use the Chung Chuie, or vertical fist straight punch, with sliding leverage, using what we call inside sliding leverage. Then I'm going to show you the Bill Jeet, or finger jab, with inside sliding leverage. And then I'm going to show you how the Fook Da, or Fook Sao, with an immediate follow-up hit, would be used in this case. Okay, so very slowly, Harry, extend a lead hand straight punch. Okay, so that's what he's coming in with. So as he fires his, I'm going to fire mine right onto his line. Now I'm going to occupy the center with forced springing energy, straight line energy coming right into the center, okay? Now this forces his off to the side. You can see this a little bit better if you watch it from this angle. Okay, now we're going to pause for a minute. Then Harry's going to fire a quick hand strike in, and I'm going to respond with a sliding leverage straight punch. Okay, see how that works? Okay, now the Bill G, or finger jab, works along that same principle. Okay, let's adjust our line a little bit more so that I can see it a little bit better as if it was coming at him. Okay. Notice that at first I contact with my palm. Then I slide down the arm, I occupy the center, keeping my elbow down, bringing the Bill G, or finger jab, right into the eyes. Like so. Okay, now we'll pause for a little bit. Harry's going to fire a few punches in quicker, and I'm going to respond with a sliding leverage Bill G. Break the rhythm, break the timing. All you have to do is have that quick visual perception to pick up on your opponent's initial move, and then you just eat him up with that sliding leverage strike. Okay, the third method that we're going to talk about here before we change angles is Fook Da, using the Fook Sao and following up with an immediate attack. So this time Harry's going to fire the same attack. I'm going to deflect with a Fook Sao, then I'm going to slide in. So this time, instead of just contacting with the palm and sliding straight in, I'm going to deflect with a Fook Sao, and then I'm going to slide in. Okay? See what I'm doing? Now instead of just straight in, I'm deflecting first with a Fook Sao. Now this throws his center off just a little bit, giving me a little bit more time to fire that quick strike in there and get right back to an on guard position. Notice how as I do this, I cover this arm the whole time. Okay, now we'll speed it up. We'll break the timing, break the rhythm, and you'll see it applied a little bit quicker. Break the rhythm. Okay? I think you can see how effective this is. Okay, now we're going to take a little bit different angle. I'm going to show you the rear hand and how it's used for sliding leverage. Okay, now this time Harry's going to fire a punch off his lead hand. He's going to be in the right lead. He's going to fire a punch off his lead hand, and I'm going to occupy the line with my rear hand. Okay, very slow, Harry. Notice how my punch occupies the center and goes right into the target, which is Harry's face. This is once again sliding leverage. Okay, this is using the inside. Okay, now the Bill G, or finger jab. And then from a different angle so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, first using the straight punch.
right on the line. So I occupy the line, forcing him off the line. Now the bilji or finger jab. Like so. Okay, the foot dial would not be a movement that you would likely do off of the rear hand. Okay, now this time Harry's going to assume a right lead. Okay, he's going to be punching with his lead hand, and I'm going to use sliding leverage with the outside of the arm instead of the inside of the arm like I was before. Okay, now first with the Chung Chuie or the leading straight punch, very slow. Okay, now speed it up a little bit. Okay, notice I deflect him off, forcing occupation of the line. And the same technique with the bilji. This time I contact with the back of my hand, turn the wrist as I slide in, forcing occupation of the center. Okay, now we'll give you a different angle so you can see on a more direct line how this works. Okay, first with the Chung Chuie or straight punch. Then with the bilji or finger jab. Okay, notice how I just followed right up with something immediate. Now what I did, you might not have caught all that. What I did was here, pop, Jiao Sao hit, straight punch, back to an open hand blow to the neck. So we had right there. Okay, now from here, it'd be real easy to go into a headbutt, inner elbow smash. See? Headbutt right into the inner elbow smash. Okay? So it's real easy to flow into trapping movements right off of these Lin Sil Die Dar movements. So I think you can see the effectiveness of Lin Sil Die Dar and sliding leverage. In the next sequence, we'll show you what's called a shoulder stop. Now I'm going to demonstrate what we refer to as a shoulder stop. Okay, from the fighting stance, if my opponent is firing a punch at me with his rear hand, it's a simple matter, right when he starts to fire that punch, as he comes through, for me to insert just a direct palm hit right into his shoulder to stop that punch. Okay, Harry's going to help me demonstrate this. Harry's going to assume a left lead. Okay, now by Harry being in a left lead and me being in a right lead, you'll get a real clear view of what's happening here. Okay, now Harry is going to fire a rear hand straight punch. As soon as I pick up any intention for him to fire that punch, I'm going to insert a palm shot right into the head of the deltoid to stop this punch cold. Okay? Notice how this hand is here as a check, as a cover. Just in case there's more extension than I thought possible from that punch. And if the person had longer arms than me, there would be a possibility that they could get a little more extension than I was expecting. So this hand acts as a cover. Okay, now from here, boom, it's real easy for me to fire an immediate cross right onto the open line. And that open line is created by me delivering that shoulder stop. So from here, boom, right into the cross. Stop, cross. Stop, cross. Stop, cross. Okay? Now, if he were in a right lead, and he went to fire that same rear hand punch, I could execute the shoulder stop here. Then follow up immediately with
the cross covering with a tan, which would be shoulder stop, tan da. Like so. Of course, off of that, there'd be many other things possible. I could be like here, 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 see? Now, if at any time he decides to block any of this, with this hand, I just flow around and just take him with something else. Okay? So, that's the basic use of the shoulder stop in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Now, in the next segment, we're going to cover some of the basic upper body evasive movements that we use in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Okay, now we're going to cover some of the basic upper body evasive moves used in Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. We'll be covering the slip, the duck, the bob and weave, the snapback, and the shoulder roll. First of all, a slip is just a light, quick movement of the head. It gets you just barely out of the way of an incoming punch. Punch coming in to this side, punch coming into this side. The idea is to make it very close. You want the opponent to barely miss. That puts you in a better position for a quick counter. The duck, you simply bend the knees, drop the body, bring the hands up to cover, looking through the hands, making sure you don't lose sight of your opponent. So you're here, you're here. Duck just enough so that your opponent's offensive technique barely misses. Barely misses. Then you have the bob and weave, which is where you go down and weave. It's bob and weave. Okay? This would be like if your opponent threw a hook. You duck, you come up here, he throws another hook. You bob down, you come up here, ready to counter immediately. Snapback simply involves just snapping back from the waist just enough so that a technique barely misses. This is also sometimes referred to as a backward slip. In the shoulder roll, if the opponent attempts to throw a cross, you kind of combine a snapback movement with bringing the shoulder up, kind of bringing the elbow out, so that this cross sort of deflects off of the shoulder and the elbow area, covering at the same time with your rear hand, just in case of mistake, okay? This would be probably the least used of these techniques. And most of the time we train this, we wear boxing gloves so that when the technique comes in, if you mess up, it's not so bad, okay? Now, first we're going to cover the slip. Harry's going to join me. Now, Harry's going to stand directly in front of me here, okay? He's somewhat out of view to you, but you will be able to see his punch as it comes by my head. Okay, if he fires a lead hand punch, I'm going to slip just enough to make it miss. If he's wearing a glove and it brushes my head, that's all the better, because that means it was very close, and that's what I'm looking for, see, because I'm getting that little bit of an opening that I need to land a quick counter shot. Okay, if he's punching with the rear hand, once again, I want him to miss just enough so I can land that quick counter shot. So you can see his punch coming directly over my shoulder, and you can see how I'm set up for an immediate counter punch to his body. Okay, now, so you see a different angle on that. Punching with his lead hand here. Notice how I use a little light Woang Pak as a cover, just in case. Punching with his rear hand. Just enough so that he barely misses. And like I said, if he's wearing a glove and I feel it brush me, that's just what I'm looking for. Okay? Now this is the slip. Okay? Now, The next technique that we're going to cover is the duck. Okay, we'll show you this from this angle. All right, let's say that Harry fires a hook punch at me with either hand. I bend the knees and drop my body just enough, either hand, just enough to make that miss, okay? If I don't drop enough, I'm going to get hit. If I drop too much, I'm way down here, look at this knee, way down here where his knee can smash me right in the mouth, okay? And I sure don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to drop just enough to make that shot miss. No matter which hand he's throwing with, just enough to make it miss. Notice how I'm covering with my hands. Notice how I'm watching his body as I drop, so I don't miss anything he does, okay? That's the basic duck. Okay, then on the bob and weave, say he throws a hook punch at my head with his lead hand, and then follows immediately with another hook punch with his rear hand. I drop, I come out, I drop, I come out. Okay, now, while I'm down here, boom, boom, see? I can be throwing boom, boom, these little damaging counter punches. If you're looking at this straight on, what you're seeing is side to side movement, like so. So I drop and I angle out. I drop and I angle out. That's what we're looking at, okay? This is basic bob and weave. So once again, if he hooks, okay, like so. All right, the next thing that we are going to cover is referred to as a snapback. Okay, if he fires a straight punch at my face, I snap back from the waist just enough to where he misses. If he's wearing a glove and he brushes me, that's perfect. Okay? Because then I know that I've snapped back just enough to where if it was a bare fist, he missed me. He just barely missed me. And that's what I want. Because if I get way back here, look how much distance I've got to return to counter strike. But if he just barely misses me, whoom, I'm right on top of him. Whoom, okay? Like so. So that's a basic snapback done from the waist. Okay, then against the cross we have what we call a shoulder roll. Okay, when he brings that cross in, I roll the shoulder up so that it protects the jaw and the chin, okay? Then I bring my elbow up so that the elbow kind of completes the coverage. Now see, I can come off of that, boom, with an immediate cross of my own. Okay? Okay? That's the basic shoulder roll. Now, like I said, we don't use that movement as much because it's not quite as protective if you're not wearing gloves. In fact, I prefer not to use it. But it is good to do in the boxing glove drills, what we refer to sometimes as the ABD or attack by drawing drills, because it trains you to be able to do that particular movement, which is good in sparring when you're wearing gloves. So, this concludes the basic upper body defense and evasive movement portion of the tape. Next, we're going to go into lower body defense, and first we're going to cover what we refer to as stop kicking. In this sequence, we're going to talk a little bit about what we call in Jeet Kune Do stop kicking, which is intercepting with the foot. Although Jeet Kune Do means the way of the intercepting fist, it does not always have to be the fist or the hand that does the interception, as we're about to show in this portion on stop kicking. Now, since stop kicking was demonstrated in a previous tape, we're not going to go extremely in depth onto stop kicking at this time, because if you've got the previous tape, you should have seen this already and you should already be familiar with it. But what we do want to do is give you a basic understanding of how you can stop kick your opponent as part of your defensive arsenal. Now, this works especially well if your opponent is trying to keep you low and if he is using his rear leg to attempt to do so. which many arts will use the rear leg to kick. Now, normally in the case of the opponent using the lead leg to kick, we would either evade, or if the possibility was there, we would stop kick. Okay? So, at this time, Harry's going to join me with the leg guards on, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the basic stop kicks that we use in Jeet Kune Do. Get back up just a little bit. Okay, now if Harry went a left lead, and he were to fire a rear leg straight kick toward me, what I would do, I would stop kick this with either a stamping stop kick or a stamp kick, or what we refer to as juk tek or side kick. Okay, so I could either use dom tek or stamping stop kick, or juk tek, which would be the side kick. Okay, another term for stop kick is what we refer to as jeet kick, jeet tek, which means intersecting kick. Okay, now if I'm in the on guard position and Harry suddenly fires that rear leg kick, all I have to do is just bring my foot up and stop kick, like so. Okay, now I can use the stamping stop kick, which would be like so, as opposed to before, which was here. So we have a side kick for a stop kick, and we have the stamping kick for a stop kick. So I have that choice against this kick. Okay, another kick that we often use for stop kicking is the cross stamp or oblique kick. Against his rear leg kick, that would look like so. Okay, notice how during all of these stop kicks, I keep my hands up. Notice how I don't just let my hands drop. Now, believe it or not, I've seen other instructional videotapes on Jeet Kune Do where the instructor, as he talks about these kicks and as he demonstrates these kicks, he allows his hands to just fall to the side. What's covering the head? What's covering the upper body while he's doing these stop kicks? That's my question. Okay, so when you stop kick, very important that your hands maintain a position where you're on guard as you fire this stop kick. Okay, if Harry's in a right lead and he fires the kick with the rear leg. Okay, back up a little bit. Okay, he fires the kick with the rear leg. Same thing, just bring it up, right into the path of the kick. There's the stamping version. Okay, there's the oblique variation. And once again, the side kick variation. Okay, these are just some of the basic stop kicks. Okay, now, if he were to fire a rear leg hook kick from the left lead position, let's say he's firing for my groin or my midsection. All I have to do is go by the movement of the hip joint and the movement of the knee. That'll tell me where the kick's going, which will enable me to effectively stop kick it. Now, I'm going to use the stamping variation of the stop kick. All I have to do, back up, all I have to do is watch that knee. Of course, I'm focusing on the central zone using my peripheral vision to take in the elbows and knees and the forehead, which are my secondary focus points. If you saw the basic foundation structure tape, you'd be familiar with these visual focus principles. Okay, so when Harry attempts to fire that hook kick, I just cross right across the center line with my stamp kick and just stop him. Not so rhythmic. Break up the time. So all it is a matter of reading the movement and delivering the stop kick to the appropriate line. Of course, there are other kicks that he could fire. There are other stop kicks that I could use. But primarily, the kicks that you're concerned with learning to use as stop kicks, are the lead leg side kick, like so, the lead leg stamp kick, like so, or the rear leg oblique kick, like so. And remember, it's very important while you're firing all of these to maintain some semblance of a guard with the lead hand and the rear hand, okay? You don't want to just drop the hands and leave yourself open on the upper line. Okay, as I said, we're not going to go real in depth on stop kicks because that was covered in a previous tape. So in the next sequence, we're going to cover more of the lower body defense. In this segment, I'm going to talk about what we refer to as the lead leg jam. The way this works is from the fighting stance, I simply raise my lead knee. Okay, I raise it and I cover my center with the lower portion of my leg. Notice how when I do this, I point my toe down. The reason I point my toe down is because that's that much better coverage that I have when I point that toe down, okay? So, when I do this, in effect, I should cover everything from the height of the knee of the support leg all the way up to my own solar plexus. Like so. Notice how my hands maintain an on guard position and I do not allow them to fall down to the side. Okay, now I can also do this with a burning step. Like so, to close the gap with the jam. Okay, Harry's going to join me at this time. And we're going to just give you a little bit of basic coverage here of what the jam is all about. Back up just a little bit. Okay, now Harry's going to throw a lead leg hook kick directed into my midsection. Okay, now notice how I just lift that knee. Notice how I'm ready immediately to touch down and deliver a punch, okay? Okay? Notice how close he comes to actually landing the kick, okay? That's the idea, nothing wasted. Okay, now, if we're a little bit further back, and Harry's in the opposite lead, and he starts that rear leg kick. See how I use that burning step? To cover that gap. Okay, so as soon as he starts the kick, I close that distance using that burning step. Okay, all right, back up a little bit. Okay, now, if he's firing a rear leg hook toward my groin area, all I have to do is lift the leg and jam it, okay? It's just that simple. Once again, I'm ready to touch down into striking range. Okay, let's let you see a different angle on this. Okay, once again, we'll go with the lead leg hook. Show another angle, a little closer. Okay, notice how effective the coverage is of the target area. Very good immediate protection of that area, okay? Notice that it leaves my hands free for attack. These are some of the advantages of the lead leg jam. Okay, so once again, just bring that leg up right on the center, occupy the center so that your partner cannot get in. Another way that this is used is that the opponent should suddenly move forward, sudden rush towards you. Okay, I pick up on that rush, okay, and I just come right in, okay, okay, I just pick up on that rush, just come right in, okay, so I just jam him up as he rushes in, okay, that's basically how it works. All right, in the next segment, we'll show you what we call the reverse pendulum. In the final segment of this tape, I'm going to show you what we refer to as the reverse pendulum. Okay, the reverse pendulum is simply an evasive move designed to get your lead side, your lower lead side, out of the way of an incoming attack, whether this be a side kick, a hook kick, or an oblique kick, whatever kind of kick it is. This is just designed to get you out of the way. This is an evasive move to get your leg out of the way of an incoming attack. Okay, Harry's going to join me now. Okay, back up a little bit, Harry. Okay, now Harry is going to, at will, fire any kick that he wants at my lead leg, and I'm going to use this reverse pendulum to evade it. Then I'll come back, I'll assume my stance, then he'll fire another kick and I'll evade it. So we'll just give you some idea of how this works, okay? Back up just a little bit. Okay, good. Whenever you're ready, Harry. Okay, all I have to do is be aware of Harry's initial move, which I'm going to pick up from the hip and the knee. As soon as I see that knee start to move, all I do is apply the reverse footwork that we learned in the first second take, the second volume, which covered footwork. You learned the reverse pendulum, which is one of the reverse footwork methods. And what we do, we slide the lead foot back, tap the rear foot out, and that's it. Okay? Now this is half of what we call a full pendulum. Okay? So, this is the rear half of the pendulum, or reverse pendulum. So whenever I see a kick coming in, all I have to do is slide the lead foot back, tap the rear foot out. So I'm here, I'm here. Notice how quickly I get out of the way. Okay? Okay, notice I keep my guard up while I do this. Now, in the section on footwork, you saw what we refer to as the full pendulum with a return side kick. Okay, now what that looks like, you're here, then you're right back in with a side kick of your own. So this adds a whole new dimension to the pendulum. When your partner fires the kick, or when your opponent in the street fires the kick, you evade his initial kick. Then without putting your rear leg down, you return immediately with a side kick of your own, destroying his lead leg. Harry's going to join me now. We'll show you how this works. Okay, watch out now, don't get too close. Okay, now when you train this, you have to get a little bit further apart, because if you don't, when you return your side kick, you'll smash your partner's leg. This is pendulum footwork in Jeet Kune Do. As you see, it's used primarily for evasion or evasion with a quick return attack. I'd like to thank you for joining us in Jeet Kune Do Complete, Volume 6, Hand and Leg Defense. I hope you'll follow up and join us in Volume 7, Energy and Sensitivity 1. In this tape, you'll learn the beginning drills for picking up the different types of energy that are necessary for you to understand in order to effectively flow in and out of all the ranges, and in order to effectively trap hands without the movement being just the mechanics of trapping. You have to learn to feel the energy. You have to learn to sense the directional flow so you can react with contact reflex. Okay, so I hope I'll see you in Volume 7, Energy Sensitivity 1. If you would like to join the United States Jeet Kune Do Alliance,
or if you would like information on the Alliance or the International Jeet Kune Do Federation, you can write to me, Sifu Lamar M. Davis II, at 267 West Valley Avenue, suite number 223, Birmingham, Alabama, zip code 35209. The phone number is area code 205-664-5425. At the completion of this series, there will be 20 volumes. If you would like information on any volumes that you have not yet received or the release date of upcoming volumes, please feel free to write to me at the aforementioned address or to call me at the phone number that I just mentioned at any time. I'll be glad to talk to you about this. Also, if you would be interested in sponsoring a seminar on the original Jum Jeet Kune Do as taught by Bruce Lee, I'll be glad to talk to you about scheduling, and I'll be glad to send you some information on fees and arranging his seminars. This is a good way for you to get actual hands-on training in Jum Jeet Kune Do, and a good way for you to potentially make some money while promoting the original art as it existed when Bruce Lee was alive. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in future volumes.